before we begin the show, I would like to apologize for not knowing what I'm doing on computers. Anyways, so the show didn't go live, so we're going to put it out, and then we'll also bump it up to Facebook tonight, maybe do a watch party, get that going. I've also been asked to remind everyone about the ERDA referendum signatures that are needed. If you want to sign that and you want to support them on keeping the current zoning in ERDA, come to our Facebook page. There's a poster on there, the Twilla Happy Hour Facebook page, about where the signatures can be signed. Saturday is the last day. So Thursday and Friday, 4 to 7, Walmart, north side by the grocery pickup, Home Depot, north side by West Driveway, State Liquor Store back in the grass, and then Saturday, all the above locations, and also Grantsville Maverick, 9 to 2, and Durfee Road and 800 East, 9 to 2. So, yeah, thanks for your patience, and let's get on with the show. All right, welcome to the show. So tonight we have Rob on with us, and he runs TUSC Coin. Is that how you say it?
We just say TUSC, which stands for the Universal Settlement Coin.
Universal Settlement Coin, which is, it's going to be an interesting chat. Going to be wandering down some cryptocurrency and probably talk guns and all that other good stuff.
And Rob, you're based in Utah, correct?
Yes. Most of our team is based in Utah, though we do have people all over the planet that are now working in the team. We've been growing a lot lately. So we got an admin in Vietnam. We got an admin in Greece. We got some supporters helping with marketing out of the Philippines. One of our developers is in Georgia, so one of our developers is in Greece. So it's becoming more international, but it was originally founded by a bunch of people in Salt Lake, and about half the team's still here, the core team at least.
All right.
So this is a budding entrepreneur here in Utah that's going to hopefully solve some problems using cryptocurrency. I'm liking this already.
Yeah, definitely. But before we get into that, we wanted to talk a little bit about the news going on.
Got to talk about the news.
Talk about what's happening around the world.
Where do you want to start, Jared?
I kind of want to start with the McCluskeys in Missouri.
Okay, you'll have to fill me in on this one. Who are the McCluskeys and what are they doing in Missouri?
Okay, the McCluskeys. So anyways, you remember it came out, the BLM broke onto that private street.
Our lawyer friends that wanted to protect their private property.
And the family lawyers, the family lawyers came out to defend their private property with firearms. The husband had an AR variant, and the wife looked like she had a P223 or something, a little nickel-plated number. So the DA there, like DAs are doing lately, I think if I was to riff, or not the DA, the AG, if I was to riff, I would say AGs are located in large cities. And because of that, your AG is going to be, unless you're in a state that doesn't carry any large cities, like we're lucky here, our AG won't go radical hard left. But anywhere where you have a large city, such as St. Louis, where the AG will be located, she has gone hard left. And it's come out that the police went and did an investigation. One of the junior AGs, we'll call them the Boy Scout AGs, was putting pressure on the detectives to come down hard on the McCluskeys and to kind of fiddle with evidence. So the police came in. First thing they do, confiscate the weapons right off the bat. Well, the little pistol apparently was inoperable. She just held it for show. I've heard rumor that the AG knew that this pistol was inoperable, but sent it to a kind of a firearms tester there in Missouri and had them make it operable so it could be fired prior to charges being filed.
Well, that was kind of them. Now she can fire it.
Yeah. And then and so they've had but the detective that they were forcing the hand of to go draconian has released the voicemails and emails that he received from them. So a little light is being shined on them. If you want to check it out, a good in-depth, there is Matt Christensen on YouTube, does a good in-depth on it, like a 20-minute deep dive into the fuckery that the AG and DAs are doing. And also, I don't know if you've heard of Viva Fry. He's a lawyer out of Canada. He does another good dive into it. So if you get the chance, I'm just going to give you the rough around, but if you get the chance, jump onto those two YouTube channels. They're both very knowledgeable.
Well, it's nice to know that there's law authority figures out there that will go rogue against the empire.
Yes. Yeah.
It's comforting.
That's very good to hear that. Very good. And then we've got some other news, Dave. What do you want to jump into?
Well, I hear that there's a few media outlets that are kind of keeping quiet on an incident that recently happened. Probably the lowest of the low BLM news I've ever heard so far. And frankly, I feel sorry for anyone who wants to associate with that group now after hearing this. But I think you know what I'm talking about. We had an incident where a black member of the society walked up to a white member of the society who was 5 years old and executed him.
Yeah. Now, where was this located at?
Ooh, well, it was somewhere in the States. That I don't know. We're going to have to pull that up. But the fact is, these media outlets are not really talking much about this instance. I think Fox News reported on it, but all the other major ones are hush-hush.
Yeah, they really are. So we are, go through it. Guy comes up and shoots a kid in the head. Now, we don't know if this is a BLM, if this is BLM connected. I've read through quite a few pages on this. I'm trying to remember where it was. But anyway, so this guy was friends with the family. It was in North Carolina. So this guy, he was friends with the family. And I'm going to go ahead and share the screen right now. We are looking off the Federalist, so I guess that's a lucky draw off the first grab. But anyways, he was friends with the family. He'd had dinner at their house the night before. So I don't know if this one we can chalk up to Black Lives Matter, the killing itself. I wouldn't want to go there. The police haven't released a motive yet. But he did walk right up and shoot a 5-year-old. Now, maybe that has something to do with the dinner they had or something else happened. But anyways, it's horrible. Then the guy went on the run. The marshals had to go track him down. He went a couple cities away, and they had to go track him down. But he walked right up to the kid in the middle of the street while the kid's riding his bike and shot him in the head. And yes, the media has been, as far as I know, silent on this.
Well, the Facebook threads have been pretty active on it, and
yeah,
I'm just sending you some information here on some of the most repulsive things I've seen on threads so far.
There's been a lot of people, a lot of support from BLM people. That is true. Saying some pretty heinous things.
So I really think that, we need to rein ourselves in as a society and not use violence of this magnitude, no matter how you feel. It's a horrible thing to even say that you agreed with whatever type of revenge this was just because the kid was white. And that's what I'm seeing on threads on Facebook all the time when I'm looking at posts for this particular article. It's disturbing, man. I mean,
It is. Well, and I don't know. Are either of you guys familiar with James Lindsay?
Not really.
Do
I know the name. I don't listen to him.
You remember when there was 3 people who started writing fake leftist papers and put them out, and it caused kind of a stir? Peter Boghossian and James Lindsay, and I forget the English lady's name, but she's from England, and like they copied Mein Kampf in one of them, but it was I think a feminist one. So,
oh jeez,
and it got published.
They were praising it.
Yes, but they put it as if Mein Kampf was written by Femdolf Hitler, I guess. But it got published. It got put out. But anyway, so James Lindsay's got probably one of the better grabs you'll hear about on this, and he's talking about there are mythos being built up right now, like that guy in Ferguson, Missouri that got killed, Brown.
Hands up, don't shoot.
Yeah, the hands up, don't shoot. How it's a mythos now, even when it's scientifically and everything, even when it's proven wrong, it's a mythos. So it's like tearing down a religion. You almost it almost becomes untouchable.
It's like chopping down a cherry tree.
Yeah,
I got you.
But anyway, so one last story in the news, and this is sad. It's sad right now because all of our news is kind of centering around this. I don't want to make this a race-based thing, but talking about Zoom in Florida, a lady was having a Zoom meeting with her kids. Like I think 3 of her kids, it was with the teachers, like that Zoom classroom type setup. She had a couple of her kids and a couple of nieces and nephews there. And her ex-boyfriend, who she had just gotten out of jail for domestic violence. Now, I don't know if she was there for beating on him or beating on a kid or a different ex or different current, whatever. But he came over during the Zoom meeting, and so the kid's on the computer. The teacher hears rustling and arguing, and then hears the gunshots. And then he shot the computer. They don't know if he shot at the child or he was aiming for the computer, but that's a pretty crazy one. I mean, he's been caught and drug in and everything else, but I mean, that's a rough go right there.
Was anyone hurt?
Killed the mom.
It did kill the mom.
Yes, he killed her. The Zoom meeting thankfully didn't pick that up, but her children saw it. So that's another horrible story. It does seem like the media, for, I guess mainstream or whatever you want to call it, the corporate media does not want to cover any of these stories because the perpetrator doesn't fit the narrative that they're trying to push right now. And I almost feel like the media is trying to force a civil war.
Well, the communist playbook is an old one, Jared. I mean, ever since seems like the beginning of time, they've been trying to goad the races of America into hostilities against each other.
Yeah,
it seems like it's working now. It seems like they are succeeding, and it's unfortunate.
That came out real big in communist Russia. They would put on their news when we had the civil rights going on in the 60s. Communist Russia would play those civil rights arguments all day long when they would sick the dogs or the fire hoses or the batons on the activists, because that's what they were then. They weren't rioters. They were activists. They would sick the dogs on them, and Russia would grab that and play it all day long. Look how evil America is. And I would honestly say, had we not amended the Constitution to give civil rights and end Jim Crow, Russia might have had a few extra years in them because that bolstered their populace, even though Russia was, communist Russia was dog shit. Just by doing that, it bolstered their populace. Because after that, they got to see soap operas where, the maid has a car and a telephone and things that they didn't have. And that made them question. And then Poland happened in 81 or something like that. And that was the first domino to fall. And it was inevitable after that.
Well, it's not like we're going to get video footage of how people lived in the gulags. So,
well, no, we are not.
We can't use it against them.
We are not. But anyways, Rob, you got any thoughts on all of that? Or you want to get the 10-foot pole out and pretend not to touch it?
There's some deep rabbit holes there. Definitely some minefields. But the McCloskey thing is interesting, and I don't take the typical libertarian line on that. I actually have deviated a little bit, and I think there's two ways to look at it, right? Like I think if you look at it from a tactical scenario, they should have never left their house, and they should have never aimed their guns at people. And I think there could be a crime committed, and there's a very fine line. And I've really looked at a lot of the evidence in that case, and this is my concern. And I looked this up, and the question of stand your ground laws are different in every state. And yeah, if people come on your property, you can defend your property. However,
the castle doctrine. This isn't
castle doctrine, stand your ground laws. Yeah, but you still have to have a reasonable fear before you can use those that your life is in danger. And I haven't seen any evidence that shows, one, that there were weapons from the crowd. I haven't seen any evidence.
There are photos that have come out of the crowd with weapons.
I haven't seen any of those. So like I said, I haven't seen any evidence of that yet. There may be. I did see a video. So the other thing is whether or not, so so tactically speaking, I think they're dog shit. I think the reality is the best thing they could have done is stayed in their house and called 911. And instead of going out to confront the crowd, I think that was a really big tactical mistake. And I think the way they mishandled their weapons, that should make any 2A person cringe. And I think how they handled their weapons gets pretty damn close to breaking a brandishing law. Now, the crux is,
I don't think the husband ever pointed the weapon and looked down.
Well, it was always kind of in that straight, low, ready kind of scenario. It wasn't like on his back. It wasn't aimed downwards. It was aimed straight, like shoot from your hip kind of thing. So and he was aiming it at people. I don't know anybody who instructs or is involved with the gun community that would support the way they handled any of their weapons whatsoever.
I agree. Both of them were novices.
And on top of that, I don't know anybody tactically who would have recommended that they go out and try to confront a crowd like that at all. And I think, so the question is legality of what they did or not.
Questions.
And I'm not an attorney, but the question comes up, I hear from a lot of people, is whether or not it's castle doctrine because it may or may not have been a gated community. And so I went so far as I pulled up the land records from that area in St. Louis County, because I was curious about this. Now, that area, if you look at the property lines on their maps, now these aren't always accurate, do go into the street. However, I also pulled up a record from about 10 years ago where the McCloskeys sued their homeowners association, claiming that the homeowners association was not maintaining the sewer line that went from the road to their property. So to me, whether or not the castle doctrine would apply would also...
I got to jump in real quick.
Sure.
Now, if they're a member of a homeowners association and part of the bylaws of that association are they maintain that sewer line, I think you're contracting two different things.
Well, I was going to finish my statement.
Okay.
The point is, if the homeowners association is in charge or owns the common area, which is very common in homeowners associations, even if you're a member of it, if they're a legal entity, that may affect, and I don't know this to be a fact, it may affect whether or not the castle doctrine was appropriately, invoked, because I didn't see anybody go onto their lawn. I saw people go onto a sidewalk in the street in front of their house. So really what comes down to who owns the sidewalk, who owns the street legally. And I don't know what that is because I could not ascertain that based on what I've looked. But like I said, I went up and looked at the land records, the GIS maps, and I did go and find that lawsuit that shows that the fact is that the McCluskeys did sue their homeowners association for not maintaining common property in the homeowners association. So the homeowners association is a legal entity that does have responsibility in their neighborhood. So to me, that question needs to be resolved first legally on the ownership, because if the street is owned contractually or otherwise by the homeowners association, you can't invoke generally a castle doctrine on that unless there's provable defense of somebody else's life, typically. And so lawyers will have to hash that out because I couldn't find it. And I'm pretty smart about looking laws up. Like I said, I did do a deep dive in the rabbit hole on that to try to figure that piece out. I did see a video. So here's the thing. I did see a video of someone escorting the crowd. And there's this videos online. Someone with a walkie-talkie, someone that appeared to be Caucasian, walking people through the gate, which was not broken at that time. Later,
that's another question. Initially, the gate was opened
and working, and then later there was visibility. There was a picture that circulated after that showed the gate was broken. Yeah. But it's clear at the time because. So here's the thing, though. But this is important, though, right? Like for castle doctrine, and this is where it gets. This is a really gray case to me. A lot of people say this is a black and white case, and to me, this is a very gray case because if the gate was both unlocked and if the gate was not broken, and people were only walking on a sidewalk and not even on their property per se, depending on what the legality of that is, I don't even think they have a good claim to use castle doctrine as a defense in that case. And so I think it's just, it's a tough one. But there was a picture later that circulated that showed the broken gate, but there's no context. We don't know how long, how much later, when the gate was broken itself. But it was clearly showing that when most of the crowd had already walked through, the gate was still fully functional and operational and not locked. And so I think that also goes into the fact if there wasn't anything broken, that does change the nature of just people walking down the street. Especially
that escorted thing. Now, who was the escort? If the escort is not a part of that land, then that's fine. Now, sounds like your question is where does their castle doctrine start?
Right. Legally speaking. Now, I think morally it's a different issue, but legally speaking, that is going to be a bone of contention, I think, in this case.
Missouri has one of the strongest castle doctrines in the United States.
Right.
Someone in your driveway, when in most other states has to be inside your home. And some castle doctrines are like if you're in your car as well. So, because that's an extension of your home in a lot of places. Like I said, I'm not an attorney. I do in my day job expert witness work. So I work with a lot of attorneys on legal cases. So that's why I'm able to go and look stuff up and try to figure out these kind of things. Because I do think though, regardless of how it looks. Now, good. I understand to upper middle class or rich white people in a fancy neighborhood, a whole bunch of black people walking through their private gated neighborhood's going to scare the shit out of them, right? Well, and I think walking through.
What's that?
You can't claim they were just walking through.
Yeah, I think they were.
Well, you could hear that they were yelling and threatening.
They were protesting, but here's the thing: someone walking down a street, I didn't even see. I looked at a lot of videos. They didn't even walk on their lawn.
That they did. The question is, did they not walk on their lawn because of their presence?
Well, I don't know. And here's the thing, though. If they're staying, but I have a hard time, unless you have visual proof, and there's proof that these people had guns and the crowd was threatening them and that they had a legitimate case. I mean, this is where it comes down to, and a jury is going to have to look at all this evidence, right? I'm just saying is the evidence I've seen so far is gray. Yes. And maybe there's more evidence that needs to come on, and I'd love to look at it. But I think one question I don't have the answer to is who actually owns that street and sidewalk. And because that will affect whether or not you can bring a gun out. But the thing is, here's the problem, you still have to have legitimate, credible fear for your life. And people just walking down the street, like for instance, you can't just kill somebody that trespasses.
No, you can't.
That's not allowed. right? You can't just kill someone for trespassing. If a little kid, throws his ball in your yard and he's going to get his ball.
No, let's not use the little kid example. Let's use his father.
Okay, well, even his father. If a kid goes into someone's lawn and tops over the fence to get his law, you can't just shoot the guy.
If you're bringing up a little kid, you're throwing a straw man argument out.
Well, I'm saying, anybody, okay, but
with an adult male, so you got to.
If you, all right, a black adult male with dreadlocks says "fuck Whitey" on his T-shirt. He jumps over the fence to get the ball. You still can't shoot him for that.
No, you cannot.
Didn't they just do that at the White House to someone?
Well, it's different when you're the president, right? But my point is, I think in this case, there's a lot of information that I think needs to be sussed out, whether or not Castle Doctrine Pro. I think they were pieces of shit for coming out of their house, personally. I think they would have probably, in that case, provoked a much worse response than they would have gotten if they didn't. Because there's no evidence to show that I've seen that they, one, were destroying their personal property, or two, were a threat to their life. And they're going to have to prove that in court to justify their level of defense by brandishing weapons like that.
I agree with you on both those.
So what you're saying is you have to wait until they attack first before you can protect your property.
Generally, yeah. That's generally how it works.
I think okay, maybe that is how it works in the court of law, but I mean, this wasn't a very hostile group. I mean,
protesters look hostile, right? And look, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but I'm saying is if you don't have clear-cut evidence to show that these guys, one, had weapons, or two, were a credible threat, you can't just brandish. Because brandishing, here's the thing. There's no law that allows you to brandish. There is no law that allows that. The only time and this is a thing that people have a hard time understanding. You can defend yourself under most Castle Doctrine laws, absolutely. But there's no law that just allows you to show a weapon to scare people.
Mm-hmm. Well,
there's no law that allows that, pretty much anywhere.
Presentation is, it falls under the use of force doctrine for law enforcement.
So ultimately, if you're going to pull a gun because you're concerned about a credible threat to your life, then you have basically the same level of force that I guess this is at least how it's been explained to me. Now, I could be wrong, but this is how, because I have researched this, and I've talked to attorneys about this. What they say to me and what I've read is that the conditions that allow you to point a gun at someone means that you have the right to kill them to protect yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
However, there is no law that allows you to pull a gun to threaten somebody where the conditions do not permit you to shoot them. Well, you know what I'm saying?
Gun, though. How do you? So in the military, we're trained to point down unless we're going to shoot. Of course.
If this guy was in the military, it was 40 years ago, and he forgot how to hold that weapon. The wife, you could tell, had never had any training. Yes, her finger.
So they were pointing. They were pointing.
Her finger was on the trigger, but
right.
3 knuckles.
So to me, I just haven't seen. So in my opinion, and it's one thing. Look, if they would have had their weapons on their back, their weapons on their hip, their weapons in low ready, this would have been a very different scenario for me, at least, watching the footage that I've seen. And because when you point a gun at someone, that's assault. Okay, that's not even just brandishing, that's assault. Like if you're sitting there and you open your jacket and show your gun and say, you fuck with me, and you open your jacket up, that's brandishing. When you point a gun at someone, that's assault. Okay, there's a different level there, by the way, because it's credible. If someone points a gun at me, I have the right to shoot them because there's a very fucking credible threat that they're going to kill me. If you're pointing a gun at me and I didn't, initiate this, I have a right to kill you. So to me, I have not seen the evidence other than people walking near their house. I have not seen evidence of a credible threat that they can justify what their assault was. And so I think this is the nuance, because they're going to have to prove that these people were armed. And one of the things that would give you indication if they were like throwing stuff at their house and on their property and breaking out their windows and all sorts of other things, that would be very clear cut to me, right? That's different. You're really defending property because they're attacking your property. But you don't even have video of them walking on the grass and they're pointing guns at people.
But the gate was property, correct?
We don't know that. That's the problem right now, because does the homeowner association own it? And even then, it's arguable trespassing is not a credible threat to your life. There's a difference there. So remember, it's one thing if you walk out there with your gun and low ready, you're strapped, right? That's a different animal. You can stand on your porch with a gun, open carry.
Very true.
When you point a gun at somebody, you're saying, I'm willing to kill you. And that is assault unless you have a legitimate, credible. Trespassing is not alone, just someone trespassing. And we don't even know that they were yet.
Yeah, that's another big question. Were they? Now, I had heard about that gate thing. And this almost makes me wonder if they were escorted on, did maybe a friendly party to the McCloskeys break that gate after?
Or was it just these guys got mad afterwards because they had guns pointed at them? They broke it on the way out? I don't know. That's the thing we don't know. At least I haven't heard.
We got a couple of amateur backyard wrestlers in there and decided to have a quick suplex right next to the gate and hoops.
Yeah. So to me, it's a tough case. Like I think, and it's a political case because it was made political, right?
And both sides made it political.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think ultimately it comes down to two factors on I don't think they handle themselves maturely, responsibly at all as gun owners. I think they're a disgrace to gun owners in general.
Right now, neither of them have had training. Neither.
No. But the thing is, it comes down to, though, can they prove that there was a credible, that they had so it always comes down to reasonableness, right? So in court, in a lot of these cases, a jury or a judge would look at, would a reasonable person in their and fear for their life? Because that's the level of threat. Castle Doctrine is always based on the fear for your life.
No, I haven't seen the video, but the reports are that the detective has reviewed video, and this is just what I'm hearing, is that he's seen 2 armed people in that group. And Mr. McCloskey said that a guy walked up to him or walked up to the edge or wherever and slapped 2 magazines together and said, "We're coming for your house," or whatever he said.
And
that would have also been said after they
had their guns out,
presented themselves on the.
And here's the thing, right? Like, let's presume I'm playing devil's advocate, right? Because this could go either way. We don't have all the facts. Like I would say this: we don't have enough facts, in my opinion, that's been made public yet, to say that this is clear cut. I think there's a lot. This could go either way to me. That's why I think it's a really gray area. So. And so I think, look, if they can, if the McCloskeys did not own the street, let's just assume, for the sake of my argument, that the property that people were walking on was not their property, right? It was either a common area or homeowner association, or let's just assume, which, by the way, I would think is likely, because that's usually what happens in these neighborhoods. It would be weird that the homeowner owns the street and sidewalk in front of their house. That's not normal. Most of the time there's an easement, and that's either contractually or owned by the city or by the HOA, because they're usually the ones that maintain it. Mm-hmm. And there is an HOA that has been sued previously for not maintaining things. So to me, that could change ownership. And that's key when you're dealing with Castle Doctrine, is ownership, right? So I think ultimately, if the McCloskeys didn't own the property, these people are walking on property the McCloskeys didn't own, and the McCloskeys point guns at people, which is assault, then someone else points a gun back, the other people might have been in the right to shoot them. If they, and they could go that way based on and we're talking about laws.
No one on the other side pointed any weapons. Apparently, all I've heard is that they had weapons on them, and they don't even give a description of what the weapon is. So
right. And by the way, just having a weapon on you doesn't mean you're a threat. You might illegally be having that weapon, but I don't know what the open carry, or if they had a CCW or what. We don't know any of that yet, right? Who's the guy? What was the weapon? Was that person? Look, I can open carry a gun and trespass. That doesn't mean you should shoot me.
Yeah,
because that doesn't mean I'm a credible threat.
That's a good point.
And
now,
right?
I don't know if I would argue from what I've seen that Mr. McCloskey pointed his weapon at people. He looked like he just carried, most of the time,
he had it on the hip. He had
Most of the time,
But he was having it on the hip facing forward at the crowd. So, I mean,
most of the time his weapon hand was on the stock.
not arguing that. And I think,
Not anywhere near the trigger. Essentially, at that time, he was.
but you still can't. But if I point a gun at you and I have my index finger above the trigger, I'm still assaulting you because it only takes me a half a second to put my finger down on that trigger.
He looked like he was just uncomfortably carrying it most of the time. His weapon hand was on the small of the stock. And
So you and I are gun guys, right? You like guns?
reaction hand, yes. His
Okay.
reaction.
But you and I are the kind of nerds that are going to notice that, point it out, look at it. The average person on the street from the inner city is probably not that accustomed and trained in guns either.
Well,
how would they know?
We don't want to break this down by inner city versus rural.
I'm saying is, but most people in the inner city are not gun community.
Well, we want to break this down. Let's say a guy bought his first firearm, his first AR at the gun store at a pawn shop. So it's used, right?
Right.
At the pawn shop. He's already scheduled a class. There's probably 3 out of 10 times he's going to carry it out of the pawn shop like that guy was holding that weapon.
Maybe, most of the time they have a case, but I understand what you're saying.
They don't. At a pawn shop, most of the time they have a scratch. And if you're lucky,
I don't really go to pawn shops that much, so I don't know, but I would assume you would have. But
I bought many guns from pawn shops. Not one has come with a case. Not one.
Interesting. So yeah, usually a lot of places you have to have it in a case when you're transporting it, depending on where you are. But my point is, I don't have a strong opinion that they're guilty or not, right? Like I'm prefacing all my statements is that I think there's areas of contention and questions that need to be answered that in my mind make this very blurry. Whereas it seems like there's a lot of people on the 2A side that they're slam dunk. This is them just defending their property. And I don't think it's that clear cut. That's my point. Like, I don't think it's clear cut right now. There's too many unanswered questions to make a good decision on it.
You definitely have, you haven't changed my mind. You've brought me into the gray.
You can't shoot people on the sidewalk. That's a fair assessment, I think. If they were on the sidewalk, it was public territory. Yeah, they're completely in the wrong. From my perspective, everything that I've seen in the media, it looked like they sieged this guy's house, broke in through the gates, and were there in his territory. I mean, like, any medieval siege, once you get through the gates, you're using swords and shields at that point. And that's what the media has made it look like from my perspective as a regular person. I see gates and they're in their territory.
Well, here's an interesting thing. They have a wall around their backyard too, though. So if you look at the property, and you can look on Google Maps and you can look at the thing. So the way the gate comes in goes on to an outside. There's a front lawn, but then there's an actual small wall across the entire front of their property too. No one went on the other side of that wall. They were kind of like on that weird side front yard sidewalk. And so I would understand, look, to me, if they were on their lawn, if they were in their backyard, that changes that dynamic dramatically.
It's like a service street. They're like at the end of a service street that services private. I would call it a cul-de-sac, but it's a road that comes to that gate and ends. And that's not substantial enough for a vehicle to drive through.
No, it is. It actually is a road, and there is a gate. So there's a main gate and a pedestrian gate, and then the pedestrian gates there. That's a road that goes onto that main drag. It's locked probably, but there absolutely is a road gate there that at one time that did permit access, and it's a full blown boulevard road.
They marched up to it and protested outside for a few minutes, and the HOA made the decision: let them march through and protest so they don't destroy the property right there at the gate. Let's just accommodate them marching through and try to keep an eye on it. And McCluskey's overreacted.
It's possible, and I don't know. And this is this. I want to see how it pans out. I'd like to see what
McCluskey's were hoping for that HOA president to come out and be present. Maybe that's who the guns were for, because they might be mad because they lost a lawsuit.
Well, the neighbors don't like the McCloskeys either. So, I mean, like I said, they sued their own HOA too. So it's like they're just they may not be very well liked in their neighborhood. Who knows? And let's be honest. I mean, we also know, I'll be the first to say, going through that neighborhood was absolutely an organizer's wet dream. This was intentional to get a rise out of rich people and make them feel uncomfortable. That's absolutely what the point of that was, right? And so there's no doubt in my mind that this was definitely a political maneuver to evoke a reaction, and they got a reaction. Now, and the question is, were they absolutely rioters? The problem is, let me follow up with that though, right? So what would be good evidence to support the McCluskeys if that mob or that group or that, group of protesters went and trashed somebody else's house or did damage somewhere else in the neighborhood or trashed something? The problem is they didn't do that.
On the
Previous
way
actions.
Or final actions. They could say, well, look, they went on and trashed 4 other houses in our neighborhood, so they were clearly a violent mob. That's why we defended, but our house didn't get trashed because we defended it. But there was no evidence that happened. And so
damaged the fence on the way in.
But we don't have proof. We have video that shows them walking through an intact fence, though.
We don't know when that fence was damaged, and they did not damage it on the initial.
Yes, correct. And so
it was probably 6 or 7 people back. And the gate was opened and they just walked in, and the gate was opened by a Caucasian male. And so,
the gate was already opened.
Oh, it was already open.
And there was already people had gone through it. And then there was a video of the Caucasian with the weird stringy hair. They only showed the back of it and a walkie-talkie in their hand. And they were escorting more people through. So yeah, it's weird. Like, don't get me wrong. I think this is absolutely an organizer op and all that stuff, but we don't have at least follow-up evidence. Like let's just say, assume, like if they were really an angry mob that was really riled up and they were looking for violence and trashing, maybe they would have just moved on to the next house or something after the incident with the McCloskey, but that didn't happen. We don't have any, at least there's no report of that.
It does kind of like a setup. It does kind of.
Absolutely.
When you think about it, it does kind of seem like this was, maybe the neighbors invited them over and they're like, dude, this dink is going to overreact.
This mob, it was associated with BLM, correct?
Yeah, but like I've said before, not all BLM are. I mean, there's been a lot of Black Lives Matter protests and a few riots
in that location. I guess you could say maybe these people were scared because
St. Louis is freaking huge. They probably got 13 protests going on at any given time, all with their own minds and directions.
Yeah, so you can kind of see their point of view. They'd be scared. I think they were scared out of their minds.
Absolutely.
I went back to St. Louis. Well, first I went back to Leonard Wood to do some training.
Lost in the Woods.
Yeah, I went back there for I went there 3 times, but when I went back there for my phase 2, I went to the bad part of town to get gas, not knowing where I was. And I got out, started pumping, and it's not getting my card. I got out, put the thing in, wouldn't take my card. The card reader's broken or whatever. So I walk up to the window and I hand the guy my card. He says, "Get your gas and get the hell off this street." I'm like, "What?" He says, "You don't want to be out here." I was like, "Okay." So I pumped my gas real fast and I hauled ass.
You'll have to tell me where that is because I'm actually going to be there for 2 weeks. In October.
Okay. I don't know where
it was. Avoid that.
I don't know where it was. We had a little downtime before the airplane took off. Still had the rental car, so we was gonna go see the arch. And
West St. Louis is nice. And when you get to the western suburbs of St. Louis, that's where the upper scale neighborhoods are out there.
Closer to the river there. But yeah. Anyways,
it's an interesting perspective. I didn't think of that. So you enlightened me a little bit there, Rob.
Me as well.
I did not know that they were possibly even on public property. The whole media made it look like they just breached the barrier and went through the walls and were about to assault the Citadel.
Yeah, and if that were the case, I would have a very different and much stronger opinion. My opinion is I'm gray. I think that we don't have enough answers right now.
Yeah, we don't even know if the gate wasn't broken at a totally different time, like hours later or any time later. So that has been a question on my mind. So yeah, you brought up some good points. Thank you for that.
If any of our 2A guys are watching, if you know anything that we don't know and can fill us in on the details, please do let us in the comments.
Yeah, that'd be great.
By the way, I want to clarify though I'm looking at this in a very nuanced way as someone who's being very analytical and trying to look at it from a legalistic standpoint. One, I 100% support the right of people to defend themselves and their property at all times with whatever force they need to do that with. I just want to clarify that my position on self-defense is absolute.
You want it to be legitimate. One, by keeping it legitimate, it protects the Second Amendment.
Right.
And it protects our ability to have that. So, man, this if I was to put on my tinfoil hat next to me over here, I would say this was a setup by all aboard just to get their castle doctrine limited even more.
It couldn't have been a better setup if that's the case.
Right.
But ultimately, I think the setup was just this. They wanted to scare a bunch of rich people and get a response, and they did. And I think ultimately that's the start, right? Is they went into a neighborhood that know they would scare the crap out of people, a bunch of rich white people, and they're going to take a mob of protesters down their street. And they did. And they got a response. And ultimately, look, I want everybody to be prepared and trained and proper training. If those guys would have gone through a normal, any kind of basic, carbine class or tactical pistol class, the number one they say is, one, get yourself some cover. Two, don't put yourself in the middle of a mob if you don't need to. There was absolutely zero reason for them to be outside. And in fact, they probably provoked more of a problem from their response from that mob than if they would have just gone in their house. They probably would have just walked by.
Even if they would have just stood in their doorway, holding the weapons, not pointing them, they'd have been better off than the way they walked out on the lawn and shadowed the mob down the side of the house.
On top of that, they were engaging verbally with the mob.
Yeah.
Which is also another mistake. If they were really concerned, one, they could have stayed that when the mob started walking through, it looked like they were at their side door because there's a side door there, kind of in their backyard. And they went in the house, got guns, and went to the front yard. And it's like,
they came out that, I don't know if that's the main door, because it's hard to tell on rich people's houses, because if I had a side door, it wouldn't have the big lattices and the pillars in front of it, because that'd be the butler's door. He gets to walk through like red brick. But anyway, I'm just kidding. But anyways, yeah, it was fancy there. They walk out, walk back in, and then come out, and then they shadow the protesters. And I would
made it worse, to be honest.
I would argue that, yeah, you're right. If they came out and then that guy, let's say the reports that Mr. McCluskey gave that he smacked two pistol magazines together and threatened him then yeah, that guy probably had a reason to throw a threat at him. But anyways, all right. So
there's probably badness on. I think everybody there handled it wrong.
Yeah.
And then it's argued and there's some really fine points in gray area on legalese. So, and so I think this is why these things frustrate me, because people who don't, you have to really dig into some of this stuff to understand where things stop and start and how the law really applies. And
that's true. Well, the two shows I really dug into on this wasn't about their reaction so much as the AG ordering to have that pistol made functional after the fact.
But here's the thing with that, right? We all know they did it. I don't understand how that information was even made. So here's the thing, right?
The only reason we know they did that is because the detective has leaked all that.
Okay, so that's the point, right? That the detective leaked. Now here's the thing, though. That doesn't really make it, honestly, whether it's I'll tell you this, though, legally speaking, you point an airsoft gun at somebody that's realistic, that's still just as much an assault as if you have a fully functional gun. So to me,
that is true.
Now there is a nuance in Missouri law about there is a nuance in Missouri law about that, but the fact is they still had the other gun was still fully. They're playing on a technicality.
My question is, why is the AG ordering stuff like that? Let's say they even find them guilty. That's fine by me. But I don't like an AG who's going to try to shuffle evidence to get her political conviction.
I would say this, and again, this is the veracity of that still has to be, let's presume that happened, right? Okay. if that really happened and it leaked out, I'm going to say their whole case is going to be dismissed based on that, because that would cause a mistrial, because that's falsification of evidence. On it, that's prosecutional. What do they call it? Prosecution misconduct.
Yes.
So if there's evidence that shows that, this case will be dismissed.
How often is prosecutorial misconduct
That's it.
found, first of all,
Well,
and adjudicated? Because I see more often than not, the judge is like, I'll allow it.
well, if we have evidence right now that we're stated, and the detective can be absolutely deposed,
Hey,
and if he says, yeah, that's what they said, boom. But so this is the question: if that really happened, I just presume everything's gray till we have witnesses in court that are deposed. But
also,
if that,
I shouldn't make a big deal about that, because that's in Missouri. Their laws aren't really ours.
Yeah, but it's the same country, Jared. So
It
I
is.
mean, it is going to be very interesting to see how this
That's
pans
a
out.
deep shot.
I will say this though, Rob. I thought the pink shirt and the memes that came afterwards were
amazing.
They were
Awesome.
amazing.
All right, I went deep shots on this today. All right, so before we get, I want to switch gears. Rob's got a thing to talk about, and we've sucked him into
The black hole.
a legal debate. But this is how the news goes. But the news is going awry. I just want to, well, you're gonna have to slurp it up.
All right, that's abuse right there, buddy.
That is abuse.
Shame on me.
That is abuse. Now I want to talk about. First, we got to talk about our alcohol. So tonight we've
Is
got.
that gin? Is that gin?
That is not gin. We'll get to that in just a second. So tonight we've got, of course, the old Uinta Cutthroat.
Had a cord on this.
Yeah, we've got some longboard island lager. I don't know why I can't.
And
talk right now.
it wasn't very strong. I would not recommend this.
It's not a strong beer, but it's easy going. It's better than Budweiser.
It's kind of like a Coors Light.
And hopefully when we come out on Wednesday, we'll be drinking the shit I got downstairs. That's just finishing off.
Let's introduce this thing here.
So we got to introduce this tinfoil hat makes my head sweat.
Awesome.
So last summer, I went to the raid on Area 51 and had a good time, party in the desert. Me and my sister went for my other podcast. And whilst I was there, I bought some Alien Tequila. So if you hold it up, it's an alien head. And we're going to try it out for the first time. Just peeled the seal on it.
And tequila does weird things to me, so this is going to be interesting.
We're going on just about a year since I bought it. And I haven't tried any yet. So let's see how it goes. Rob, unfortunately, is in Salt Lake right now, right?
See you, Rob.
It happens.
Garrett. Oh. God damn, I need a lime with that.
Seriously? I thought it was weak.
Woo.
I'm going to clean this up, I promise.
I'm not a tequila drinker. So I'm going to pause the show real quick, and we're back. Dave, the tequila spiller, has cleaned up after himself. And so, Rob, come on in. Tell us, tell us what you got going on, who you are, and drop your plugs.
All right. Drop my plugs. That sounds kind of fishy, but all right. I'll drop my plugs. I'm Rob McNealy. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I'm based in Salt Lake City, Utah.
Serial entrepreneur?
Serial entrepreneur. It's more like an oatmeal entrepreneur because it's a really lumpy process. But no, I've been a business guy for a long time. And a couple of years ago, I got into cryptocurrency. Because, just like a lot of guys that kind of come from that libertarian side of things, we're starting to, question, how the Federal Reserve works and how our money supply is manipulated by politicians and things like that. And I said, I'm really interested in, this technology and how that technology might be able to go and possibly free people. And so we ended up launching an Ethereum token called OCC over 2.5 years ago now. And we distributed that token.
Ethereum token.
There's in cryptocurrencies, there's coins and tokens. Tokens are a type of coin that run on somebody else's blockchain. A coin runs on its own dedicated blockchain, is the best way to describe it. And now a blockchain is just literally a group of computers that talk to each other and you agree on transactions moving across the network. And so that's all a blockchain is. People try to make it, it's a database. All a blockchain is a database that is spread across a bunch of different computers that are immutable and agree on transactions. And when all those people that validate and agree on transactions happen, a permanent record of that transaction goes into the database. And generally those ledgers or that database and those transactions are publicly available. So there's an audit trail that everybody can see.
The word
and that's kind of what's
very famous in that definition. People,
exactly.
That's what gives the databases their extraordinary power, is the decentralization. So
correct. And I try to keep it at a high level because I don't know what your audience's experiences with the technology, but people try to make it a lot more complicated than it is.
My audience, not drag their knuckles. Dave's audience probably knows a little more.
Okay, it's all good. I drag my knuckles some days. The other days I don't. So we built this token and we distributed it free via faucets. And so that means that there was originally, 2.5 years ago, everybody was doing these things called ICOs or initial coin offerings, where people were selling for massive amounts of money these tokens on the off chance that they could build something that might be potentially very valuable. Now, the problem with that is that kind of violates U.S. securities laws to do that. And all those ICOs, which raised billions and billions of dollars, many of them turned out to not develop anything. Many were scams. But all of those ICOs in the United States were actually illegal under American securities laws. Now, we didn't want to run afoul of securities laws, so we actually didn't sell any of our tokens initially. We gave them all away for free. Via these faucets, which is just an application that people could go to this, basically a website, and download a share of tokens. Within about 6 months of that distribution, we saw that there were some opportunities in crypto as we learned a lot more about the space for payments. And we said, we think we can get mass adoption of these cryptocurrency projects, but we need to focus on certain industries. And we also need to make our own blockchain to do that. And so we also didn't like our branding at the time. So we renamed OCC TUSC, which stands for the Universal Settlement Coin. And then we spent 1.5 years kind of sorting out how we would govern a decentralized project and how we would launch it. And then we built our blockchain. And then October last year in 2019, we swapped from our token to our new blockchain. And then we got fully running right around Christmas. And right around the first year, we began trading again on the new blockchain. So we were fully moved over and transitioned to the new blockchain right around Christmas.
All right. I caught on to 89% of all that.
I'll take it.
There's a couple
I'll
of
take
acronyms that I went cross-eyed. But yeah.
It's a lot. So we decided to, a lot of the crypto projects out there, even like Bitcoin and some of these big projects that are like worth billions of dollars now, don't have anybody using them for their intended purpose. So far,
people are using as either
investments.
Yeah, as an investment or
dark web,
let's just say it, to hide it, to hide their money. You can.
There are some people that do that. There are some people that use it for the dark web.
If you can hide your money, hide it.
It's better to hide cash, to be honest. Right now, cash is still way better for privacy than cryptocurrency is.
Cash is key. Make your
I'll be the first to say that. Like, if you want to do malicious stuff, you should just do it with cash. Or gold or silver coins, because those are a lot harder to track than crypto is right now.
Yeah.
Even the privacy coins that are out there are actually, they're finding more and more of those privacy coins don't actually have the level of privacy that people thought they did. And there's a lot of companies that are analytics companies and tracing companies that are being employed by government to go after and try to find some of those illicit transactions on these quote unquote privacy cryptocurrencies. Now, there's multiple cryptocurrencies that are completely marketed as privacy focused. And what we're talking about is the dark web. And a lot of people use like Monero for, certain illicit transaction, but they're finding that more and more of those privacy coins aren't that private. So it'll be interesting to see how these.
A couple people to get on it to where they can start kind of tracking them and breaking them down, right?
Right. So one of the things what we're doing a little different with our crypto project is we said we don't want people to just invest or buy TUSC as an investment. Now, I'm not saying it's a good or bad investment. What I'm saying is we want people to actually use our project, our coin, to buy and sell things. And we think ultimately that's the whole original vision of what Bitcoin was originally designed for, 11 years ago when it was founded. But no cryptocurrencies have really ever cracked what we call the mass adoption barrier yet, where we actually have people using, in a common usage, just like they would PayPal. No crypto project has that yet. And so we think with TUSC, we're focused on that mission of getting people to use our crypto for buying and selling goods and services. I think, people buy TUSC because they think it'll go up in value. That's not my focus. In fact, I don't even care about the speculative side of it. Much to some chagrin of some people on the team, they want me to hype price. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. I'm not here to sell an investment. I'm here to sell a solution to a problem. And so we said, if you're going to get adoption of crypto, you need to start with people in industries that actually have a problem with normal payments. And I call it a recognized problem, right? Meaning that industry knows they have a problem and they're trying to solve it. And so in the United States, believe it or not, crypto doesn't solve a problem for most people. It actually creates more headaches for people than it solves. Outside of a couple industries. And in the United States, there are several industries with a payments problem, but they're all distasteful to somebody. So that would be things like pawn shops, gambling, cannabis, pornography, and guns. Mm-hmm. And so before we started ever building our blockchain, we decided to say, hey, look, if we're going to actually do all this work and try to build a decentralized blockchain, and I said, we need to really focus on how we're going to get people to use it. Because to me, that's the most important part. And so we said, well, we started looking at industries that had recognized problems. And what we said is we're doing the Amazon approach. We're going to focus on one industry that has a recognized problem and see if we can really get adoption there. And if we can get adoption there, then we're going to grow it out into other industries. But we need to prove ourselves somewhere. And the best way to do that is to focus narrowly on a group that have a problem. And so of all those distasteful industries that I just mentioned, the one that's most interesting to me is the gun industry. And of all those distasteful industries, it's the main one that's protected by the Constitution.
Yeah.
Things like gambling is not a protected thing by the Constitution. You can make some arguments about obscenity and pornography, but we know pawn shops aren't protected by the Constitution. But guns are, and then guns are a $50 billion industry.
Pawn shops are quite, actually, I mean, the pawn shop themselves is pinpointed, but they sell everything in there from VHSs to, power tools.
Exactly. But
guns, you focus in. And
yes.
And there's been a lot of threats of banks and credit card companies denying services to gun manufacturers.
Well, they already do.
Yeah.
And so here's the thing right now. I mean, gun dealers in the United States are one of the most heavily regulated industries. And I can tell you this, if you go through all the headaches and background checks to get an FFL or federal firearms license in the United States, you're a legitimate business. The fact is you're going to have a hard time just getting a checking account for that business, a checking account.
Really?
Now, we haven't even gotten into payment options. In fact, there's only a few credit card processing agencies that will work with the gun industry that are gun friendly right now. And since the guns are considered a red flag or, basically a high risk industry, they're charged extraordinarily high fees compared to other industries. Like they may, someone might get credit card processing for a normal convenience store for only 1 or 2%, right? For transaction fees. Gun dealers are paying anywhere from 3 to 6% plus monthlies, huge monthly maintenance fees. We had one
driving gun prices up as well.
It's a big part of it, but that's been happening since about 2013 when it came under the Obama administration with Operation Choke Point, where the Justice Department was going after and pressuring banks to go after high risk industries. The gun industry was one of them. And so, but since that time, they've been barred from any third party payment option on top of that. So if you're a lawful regulated gun store, right? You're gone through all sorts of background checks and all this kind of stuff. You can't use PayPal or Square or Stripe or any third-party payment option. And if you can get credit card processing, it's really high fees. So we said, look, I love the industry because I'm a gun nerd anyway. We're going to focus on bringing a payment solution to an industry that I value, that's very important to this country. It's very important for self-defense, but an industry that has a recognized problem. So we decided to start with focusing marketing efforts of a decentralized crypto to the gun industry as a way to get mass adoption for our project.
I like it. Hell yeah. This is when I started hearing about, the banks and credit card companies clamping down on gun manufacturers. My heart broke a little bit, and I like that I'm hearing some guy with an answer. Now, how do they do it? How do people who want to use TUSC to process buying a firearm, how do they do it?
So right now, we're still very early. So we're building out the infrastructure right now. So right now, if our product is up and running, but we don't have the payment gateways built for like e-commerce shopping cart software yet. We're building those out and we're integrating with some other people right now. But right now, we do have what we call our pilot program, where we do have a small amount of retailers that are already willing to accept us. We're already being traded. And it's basically a manual transaction. So the retailer would set up a wallet. And then the customer would set up a wallet, and then they would make the transfer.
Can we visit, or can you tell us?
Yes, if you go to TUSC.network, TUSC.network, there is a directory for the merchants that accept TUSC right now. I can tell you we have 2 FFL licensed dealers right now, one in New York, one in Salt Lake City. We have a body armor company in Provo called Citizen Armor. In fact, the first item ever bought with TUSC was body armor. And that happened just a couple weeks ago. So we had our first actual transaction for a good happen just a couple weeks ago. So worked. It was a manual process, but it went really quick. Our block times are really fast. So a lot of people don't understand this, but how fast a transaction can get validated on some blockchains is really long. So the minimum time on a Bitcoin transaction right now is 10 minutes because the block time, or the time for that transaction to get validated through all the nodes, takes a minimum of 10 minutes on Bitcoin, but it can take a lot longer depending on how many transactions are pending at one time. It gets kind of congestion. They call it the mem pool, can get filled up and it takes longer. We built our blockchain to be really fast. So we used a different type of algorithm than Bitcoin did. And our block times are 3 seconds and our average confirmation time is 2.5 seconds. So we built our blockchain from the beginning to be just as fast as a normal credit card transaction, because we felt that would ease adoption. And no one wants to wait in line for an hour for a Bitcoin transaction to go through, but if they'll be happy to wait 2.5 seconds for a transaction to go through.
Now, can we get paper wallets for TUSC at the current moment?
Paper wallets? Yeah, not a problem.
All right. Well, I am going to do a quick share of the TUSC network.
So we got a lot of interesting things coming right now. So in our roadmap, we're actually not making a major push for retailers probably from 6 months from now, because right now we're focused on building a liquidity, we're focused on building exchange listings, and there's a lot of infrastructure that goes into setting up payment systems. So we got the network running, but now how do people get their initial TUSC? How do people, we're building plugins for the shopping carts and getting integrated with other people that have those plugins for the shopping carts. So the idea is that within 6 to 12 months, we should have all the major shopping cart plugins ready. So if you're a gun retailer, or any retailer really, but if you're a gun retailer, all you need to do is download a plugin and boom, it'll fit with your existing, shopping cart software, so you can instantly receive TUSC. If anybody's interested in, anybody can use TUSC for any business, right? This is the universal settlement coin. We're just kind of focus our initial marketing in one area to kind of get traction and prove the model, really.
Yeah, and it's an area that needs help.
Absolutely. And the thing is, the gun industry is under attack, and it's not just this Operation Choke Point Bank situation. 2 summers ago, there is a Shopify, which is a major e-commerce shopping cart platform. Their CEO is a huge, tech mogul liberal, and he wrote a letter and fired every gun-related business off his platform. Said, "Get off my platform. I don't like guns." Boom. Last summer, about a year ago, Salesforce, which is the CRM software, the sales management software, they did the same thing. Their CEO came out, wanted a virtue signal. He's a huge lefty, hates guns. Stay off my platform. I don't want you using my software. So we really have this thing called censorship happening where they're trying to shut down the industry. And our long-term focus is we want to create such a robust network that it can't be shut down because of politics.
Yeah.
And that's the key. So for instance, a lot of people have a hard time understanding what a decentralized project is. We don't have a CEO. No one owns TUSC. There's no company. There's no LLC, no C Corp, no S Corp. There's no board of directors. No one owns it. We have what there's called on-chain governance. So the idea is that if you want to be involved, anybody can be involved with TUSC. Anybody can be involved in the decision-making for TUSC. And how it's done is what we call on-chain governance. That means that we have a voting mechanism system built into the network, that if someone wants to do work for the network, someone wants to change a parameter, all they need to do is buy TUSC, and one TUSC is one vote. And anybody can put in a proposal and suggest changes to the network and help grow the network. Or if somebody wants to work for the network, if they want to do marketing or if they want to do coding, they can also put in a proposal to what we call a worker proposal. And then they can work on the network and get paid in TUSC automatically into their account for doing that. But the community votes on that. And so the idea is that, I am one of the co-founders, but I don't own it. If I got swooped away and hit by a bus, it doesn't change TUSC. TUSC is still there, just like, HTML. No one owns HTML, right?
Mm-hmm.
No one owns TUSC. And so it's a hard concept for a lot of people to understand, but I always like to say, I want to keep it in simple terms. A decentralized project like we're doing is somewhere between a cross between a nonprofit and a co-op, or like an employee-owned company. So in an employee-owned company, people get to vote on how the company is run, but not any one person owns it. And that's kind of what a decentralized project like this is. But we deliberately set it up that way because, you're getting into some new territory. Some people might not like, a cryptocurrency project taking away business or something. So the idea is that if any person got quote unquote taken out or got in trouble, it doesn't change the fact that the network is still strong and resilient and can't be shut down.
I like it. I like the idea of blockchain. One of my reservations with them right now is how hard they are to get into.
The difficulty level on understanding how the process works.
Not just that, but just getting it and buying it and making it a part of your life. Right now, blockchain is set up to where generally only middle class and up can really get into it, because you've got to be able to afford the time and then also the money to get into it. And there's got to be some resources for it. And I'm hoping that eventually we get such a saturation that it just becomes like something that's out there. Like some guys have American Express, some guys have Visa, some guys have TUSC, some have Bitcoin, some have whatever other payment services out there. And then it dilutes the Federal Reserve System to where they have to sit back and go, all right, we got to look at what we're doing.
I agree with you on all fronts. So one of the things that I see as a lot of the problems with why a lot of cryptocurrency projects that are much older and more mature than we are haven't really cracked the adoption, barrier, is because part of the problem is a lot of those teams are led by just hardcore engineers and developers, not marketing people, not entrepreneurs, and they look at things a lot differently. A big fallacy with a lot of engineer types, and I love our engineers and I love the people working on the project, but they still subscribe to this concept of just build something good and people will come. And I think entrepreneurs and salespeople will cringe at that and say, look, that's not how it works. It's not the best product will win. It's the best marketed product will win. typically, VHS and beta. I'm an old man, so VHS and beta, right? And I think ultimately you have to have a good product, but you actually have to have a good strategy to market that product and take it to market. And even if you have a really good solution to someone's problem, you still have to present that solution to people in a way that makes sense to them. And I can tell you, even with blockchain, it's complicated, right? And I try to keep it as simple because I am not a developer, right? So, but I understand the technology, but I still think like just an average Joe. And one of the things that we're focused on, and this is this next 12-month period that we're working on, is that we're focusing on making all the interfaces as easy as possible. And so all the user interface designs are going to be really critical for us. We're trying to make everything as easy as Venmo. And to me, it's got to be that simple. The idea is our long-term strategy, and hopefully it won't be that long-term. We want it so if somebody goes to a website and maybe the retailer says, hey, it's the price of this body armor is $500, but if you pay me in TUSC, I'll knock off 2%. Okay. And then the idea is there's a widget right on the website where you can put in your credit card. There. What's that?
Maybe a link to the TUSC website.
Well, we don't sell TUSC. So I never sold TUSC. I can't sell TUSC. So right now you only can get TUSC on an exchange. But the idea is that we want to, and there's a lot of these tools coming in now where you can put a widget on your website. And we're building this infrastructure out that, say the retailer, say you had a website, you were selling body armor and you want people to pay you in TUSC, you're willing to give them a discount, but there'll be a widget right there where they can buy that TUSC and then turn around and pay you with that TUSC. So we're going to be making the interface as simple as possible. But one of the problems you see with adoption and why we want to focus on one industry is that we want to create an ecosystem. And right now, all the friction points about crypto are what you just described. It's how do you get it? How do you get out of it? How do you buy it? How do you sell it? And so we want to take that friction out. But the best way long-term we do this is that we make it so people don't want to get out of it. So the idea is if you get enough retailers on board in one industry, then people won't want to sell the TUSC. They will on hold it because there'll be someone else in the industry they can buy it with. And then you get enough retailers, you get enough distributors. You get enough distributors, you get the manufacturers. And then now people don't even need to go to dollars or Bitcoin.
And then you'll have retailers buying from the manufacturer or the distributor. Well, and here's another thing, to go back to the selection of firearms. In those other industries, I hate to say it, there's going to be some shady figures. There's bound to be in pornography and gambling. There's going to be shady figures, but I can't think of any weapons or ammo manufacturer that I would consider shady. They're
very honest, heavily regulated industry.
And even if they weren't regulated, they're honest people. They want to make a fine product, and people who like guns get demonized a lot, but I should say people who are respectable gun owners. I mean, you get some people who like guns who shouldn't have them, like the McCloskeys, but or what, they should have them. They should just go get trained. Probably
understand training and understand the laws a little better because they're attorneys.
A couple of attorneys might, they might should know what they can do, but yeah, I agree with focusing on the firearms, because you're not going to run into some shady guy who is in the background hurting people in some aspect. You may have a guy who's domestic violence alcoholic, but generally not. They're going to be honest, people to deal with.
Well, a lot of people, especially a lot of the people that I talk to that are non-Americans or people that are outside the country that hear about the project, they somehow think we're trying to skirt some kind of background check because they don't understand that in the United States, the payment method of how you buy a gun isn't regulated. And it has nothing to do with the background check process. That's
not at the point of sale where the person buying it gets hit with that, except on markup.
Well, what I'm saying is like in the United States, the federal government doesn't say, you can only buy a gun with this payment method, either cash or a check or credit card. The government doesn't have any say over how guns are purchased. And that has no bearing on how the background check process works for purchasing a gun. The 4473 form that's required for every retail gun sale and the background checks for every gun sale. That has nothing to do with payments. So crypto isn't designed to skirt any of that. I like, for the people that aren't necessarily gun owners in your audience, I like to point this out. This doesn't change any of that. It's just the fact that right now, gun owner or gun retailers have a real difficult time obtaining payment options, and the payment options that are available to them are super expensive. Whereas with crypto, our transaction fee is only 0.5%. So even on, and we have no chargebacks in our network. And then, you don't have to wait for a week or 10 days for Visa to put the money in your account. You get your money in your account instantly. So just on the economics, crypto makes more sense for the gun industry than any credit card processing that they can get access to now does. But on top of that, there's still the gun industry, because of politics, not laws, are still banned from using all these other more convenient digital payment methods like Venmo and PayPal and Square and Stripe and all these
And
things.
most of that is politics at the operators or owners of
the bank
of
level. It's
Venmo.
the banks. It's the banks.
Yeah, thanks.
It's not that the government's telling them not to.
Correct.
They're
Correct.
just,
It probably is in a backwards sort of way. I mean, I know the Obama administration would strong arm people's opinions on whether or not a bank should allow it. And
unless you're a Mexican cartel, they didn't want anyone to have guns.
Gunwalker, but that goes back to Operation Choke Point, right? That's where that came from, was Operation Choke Point. If you want to look that up on Wikipedia, they'll talk all about what it was about. But yes, we're still dealing with the ghosts of Operation Choke Point today. And gun retailers are still struggling with that because of the high fees they're stuck with, from the fact that they have limited options for payment, accepting payments online. And you got to remember, a lot of people don't understand that most gun stores and most gun retailers are small mom and pop businesses.
Yep.
Okay. We have a lot of really amazing gun stores here in Salt Lake City, but there's only one or two that are actually big. Most of them are small. They're small operations, and that's kind of true across the country. You don't have Walmart-sized gun stores in most places. Yeah. And so these people have limited resources available, and an extra 3 or 4% in transaction fees is a lot of money to them that they have to pay. And it's like a penalty, honestly, on small business, is all these credit card fees. So even outside
on a gun store where that's their focus, is selling firearms.
Correct. And so, we always just say, look, and here's the other issue, right? Is that since we're what we call censorship resistance, meaning that the way our network is built, there's 21 computers that are operated by independent people. I don't even know who half of them are. This is the fun thing about crypto. I don't know who runs the servers. I know some of the people that do, but we call them the witness nodes or the block producers, right? So these are people who want to be block producers in our network, and they get paid to run these nodes. This is the kind of cool thing. So what happens is someone sets up a server, downloads the software, set up the server, and then they campaign to get people to vote for them to be a block producer. And if the community agrees to them based on their website and their campaigning, they get voted into the slot to produce blocks for the network and run transactions through the network. And then, so we have 21 of those validating nodes, but then we have 79 more on standby. And those people get a little shred of payment as well. But the idea is that, let's just say some bad actor decided that TUSC was bad for everybody and we want to take it down. I already know that half the servers in the network are probably outside the United States right now. And there's so many backup servers that if someone decided to go and shut down 4 or 5 of the network servers in the United States, those other 79 backup will be elected almost immediately to fill their slot.
So,
it's self-healing.
It's not like they can come to you and strong arm you into letting them know where everyone is.
I don't know. Yeah. And a lot of them run them behind, on top of that, people run them behind VPNs. So even if they have an IP address, it's probably not a real one anyway. And this is the decentralization. So we say, and this is what a lot of the early retailers, that when we were starting to research the market and we went out and talked to the industry, right? Unlike any other blockchain, I actually went and had many, many meetings with manufacturers and retailers, and I learned all about their problems. I go to SHOT Show, I go to the Gun Rights Policy Conference, I go to NRA conference, and I'm talking to retailers, big and small. about their problems. And one of the things they're concerned about is the politics, especially of Silicon Valley, just censoring them and shutting them off and deplatforming them. And so when I say, look, not only do we have, a 0.5% transaction fee, you don't have a chargeback risk anymore, and you get paid instantly. You don't have to wait for that ACH from Visa. But on top of that, I can't shut you down because my politics change. And we've already seen with things like, Salesforce, Shopify, where they deplatform these businesses and basically are trying to put them out of business overnight with no warning. With our payment system, we can't even shut you down if we wanted to. And so a lot of the retailers that we're talking to view it and see it as an insurance policy against debanking. So if they lost their credit card processing or if they lost their checking account, they still have a mechanism to do business online.
Yeah. And as far as proliferation through the different dealers, how much do you think you have of them at least having knowledge of you right now?
Oh, we're just scratching the surface. We've literally, even coming on your show today, we've just been ramping up our PR now. So we're at a place where, and we have a roadmap for our marketing and our rollout. So it's not overnight how this grows, because we're building something that's going to be here for 50 or 100 years. That's our long-term strategy. We're not building something that's just going to be pump and dump and gone in, a year or two. We're trying to build a multi-billion-dollar platform over time. And so the idea is right now, we're just starting to build awareness for it right now. So we're starting to get some attention. We got some, and I can't even say who it is, but we got some interesting people coming onto the project. And I just literally was doing some paperwork today and doing some administrative stuff. But we have some kind of famous people coming to work with us on the project that are going to be pretty interesting. And we're going to be making those announcements here in the next couple of weeks, probably 3-4 weeks. And so I think that's going to be a big turning point for us. I think we're going to get a little famous kind of quickly.
Good. Can we have you to come back on once you're ready to advertise, so we can I would like to see all the specifically firearm dealers jump on this. I think if they all jumped on that, one, that gives me an avenue to help them out with a 0.5% payment fee, and to poke the Fed in the eye at the same time.
I always say this. I don't like poking bears unless I'll be honest. We've tried to do absolutely everything to the letter of the law in the United States.
Oh,
and actually, and I say this, like, there's a lot of people in crypto that like, screw the feds, I don't care about it. I'm like, look, there's always regulatory risk, right? And I have to say, look, I don't want to try to do something where I'm poking the bear in the eye. I am not trying to do something that's illegal. I'm not advocating for people using TUSC in any illicit manner. Our focus is to build something, and has been from day one, that's completely legal under U.S. law. We're not doing. And so I always just like to focus on that. Right? I'm not trying to poke Fed.
Right,
so,
you're right. When I say that, I don't mean doing anything illegal, but I mean taking their currency, the value of that, which falls every day, and removing it and putting it in something that can maintain value.
I will put it this way. I would say this. The currency is already, I would say this banking industry and the currency have already left this industry.
Yeah.
And I turn it around. I'm saying is this industry, in my opinion, has already been abandoned by the financial sector. They've been abandoned. And I think that's more important. It's not about that, the financial sector, they've walked away from this market. They said, we don't like this market. They're the Dick's Sporting Goods of the world, right? It's it's the Bank of Americas of the world. They don't like the gun industry. They don't want to do business with it. And so to me, I think that guns are important. And I think the ability for small businesses to thrive and the ability for people to be able to buy tools that they can defend their own property and lives with are important. And to me, I think that cryptocurrency is a solution to where the banks have already abandoned this sector. This gives them another lifeline. And to me, that's how I view it. It's not even a protest. It's the fact that this industry says, screw you to the gun, and we don't want to do business with you. So fine. They said, we don't want to do business with you. Here's a solution now that you can still do your business. And that's all it's about for me. I'm not even trying to make a political statement. It's just the fact of the matter, the banks don't like the industry and they left them.
They left a vacuum and you're going to fill it.
Correct.
I like that. So what's your projected time to go live per se?
Well, we are live now, so we already.
to where I can go buy some TUSC and then go buy some.
Well, where can we buy TUSC right now?
Yeah.
How about that?
There's 5. We're on 5 exchanges currently, and you can go to TUSC.network to find that list on where you can get TUSC.network, and there's a list of the exchanges that are right there. And we have a Telegram group that also you can talk to people in our Telegram group. It's just TUSC Network, and on Twitter we're TUSC Network. And so I think it's real easy. You can do all that right now. I mean, we're fully live. It's just more manual right now. And we're just kind of building community and building awareness right now. We got some more developers coming on because there's a lot of things. Trust me, our developers cringe every time I say, "Hey guys, I got an idea," because there's a lot of things. There's so many pieces to this. It's amazing because you'd think it's really straightforward. It's not. There's lots of things you have to figure out. But we do have multiple exchanges right now. We're listed on 5 exchanges. We have 3 more exchanges coming on, and possibly a 4th over the next 6 weeks. And we just did an announcement of one that we're getting on here in 7 days called Bololex. I can't say who the other ones are because we haven't formally announced them yet, but I can say that we are. And we got confirmations from 2 more, and we're working on a couple others, which are very promising. And so right now, in the next, on our roadmap, the next 6 to 12 months, it's about building liquidity, building awareness, and building out a lot of the infrastructure to make getting on board TUSC even easier than it is now. And then, next year, we're going to really start hammering on, really trying to do retailer onboarding because we still have a lot of work. We have a lot of growing to do. We're still kind of our newer project, but I'm super excited. I'm super bullish on where we are with the project, and the crypto markets have been warming up. So it looks like we might be headed toward a bull market, which is great. It's exciting. 100 billion market cap has been added to the crypto world in the last, 6 weeks or so. Mm-hmm. So people are starting to get excited about crypto again, and it's a real good time. And I think it's interesting. We've also had the record gun sales for the last, 4 months.
Yeah,
it's just kind of insane. You can't get guns and ammo right now, like pretty much anywhere. And, even 9mm tripled in price in the last, 8 weeks. It's insane.
I know. Yeah. All right. Well, if anyone listening to this wants to find that stuff, go to the description in video, or if you're listening on a podcatcher, go to there. I'll have links to I'll have links to the TUSC network, so you can just click on that, jump right to it. And I'll also have links to Rob if you want to harass him on Facebook.
I love being harassed.
Outstanding. See, Rob loves being harassed. He's a very cordial guy. All right. So to round this show out, I like what you got going on here. I like that you're breaking into New York State. Well, that's a state that's
a tough one.
Yeah, Dave's from New York, and I feel bad for them because it feels like a state that's held hostage by a city, and not multiple cities, by one city.
A very big one.
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate because there's a lot of that, and how it is. I mean, living out west, right? We're surrounded by occupied territory in many respects here in Utah, and it seems like it's closing in more and more. I'm from the Midwest originally myself.
Idaho up north is looking at us like you better stay away from us, except for Boise.
Well, it's interesting. I go to Idaho a lot for my day job, and it's interesting. They're having the same influx of Californians as Colorado and Utah are. So it's like
Boise's gone. Boise,
and I like Boise. Literally,
I love Boise.
So it's funny because the last big city we lived in Denver for a long time. But I'm from Detroit originally, so I keep downsizing as I move west. And it's funny because I do like Salt Lake City. It's a good balance of big city, suburban, and what I like. But I always said that the next downsize I would probably go would be Boise because I really like the Boise area a lot. But they're having the same problem with all these, people that are leaving states that have really bad policies, and then they try to, implement those same policies in their new town. And
it's just time.
Yeah, it's like, oh, we hated all the result of all this taxes did in California, so now we're retiring here with these great pensions from CalPERS, and oh, by the way, now we want to raise taxes and implement all that same stuff here. It's like, didn't you learn, or do you not understand cause and effect? I don't know.
So Rob, if somebody out there in this industry wants to learn about Tusk and they're in this local area, what are some good resources that they can reach out to for network?
Well, so locally, it's interesting. COVID sucks, right? I think we all agree on that. So before COVID, and all the crappy pandemic stuff, there was multiple blockchain crypto meetups that happen on a regular basis here in Salt Lake. And in fact, we started doing a monthly TUSC specific one too. And with TUSC, we were doing them at gun ranges, which is kind of fun. That's going to be one of our big rollouts, whenever the pandemic stuff kind of is over, hopefully sooner than later. And what we're going to be doing is organizing TUSC meetup chapters all over the country. And we're calling it our Defender program. We're still trying to figure out how we want to organize that, but that's something we're going to be rolling out. And we would have already been rolling that out, but the pandemic kind of slowed that down. But you can go up to meetup.com or on Facebook, and there's several different groups here in Salt Lake City that meet up on a regular basis. And now some of them are moving to virtual. Additionally, every year here in Salt Lake, we organize a crypto and preparedness conference called Off Chain. And the website for that is offchain.events. That's usually held in March or February. Every year, we've done 2 of them now. We decided we're going to do a virtual event this year, or I should say in 2021. That's the next one coming up, just because we don't know what the pandemic's going to be looking like. So I don't want to go through and put all that money down on a venue and all the other stuff we need to do to put on an in-person event. But with off-chain, it's really kind of fun. And this is totally like, if I had to say it's a hobby, like it's like all my favorite things in one conference. It's decentralized technology, decentralized entrepreneurship, and guns and preparedness all in one room. And I bring all these really, really smart people from all these different kind of backgrounds to teach people all about those different avenues. So I literally had like special forces people teaching people about situational awareness to protect their home, to protect their hardware wallets and stuff. So it's kind of fun.
You said you didn't like pornography, because that's what that sounds like to me.
It's pretty close.
Yeah.
But to me, it's like, with decentralized technologies, and to me, it makes perfect sense, right? A lot of people who are on the software technology side that really like crypto, they're like advocating for getting rid of the banks, man, and everybody just holds their own wealth. But here's the problem. If they had their vision and their way came through, what you're telling me is you want people to hold what could be equivalent of their whole life savings or their 401k on a little jump drive at their house.
Yeah.
Well, so there's a security issue that goes along with that.
I don't want to get rid of the banks. I want to get rid of the printers.
And you know what? I don't disagree with you, but
concern. I don't like the inflation. We've seen that. We've seen that movie. The ending sucks. The credits are horrible. I don't.
Only ends one way.
Yeah. Every time.
Only ends one way.
And granted, some go slower than others. Some have a larger populace to rape, and that makes them last longer. But the smaller the populace, the quicker it goes.
I don't disagree with you. And I think, but we were just kind of saying is like, as people hold more wealth on their person. So imagine if everybody went back to gold and silver coins, right? And they kept them at their house. You have to now think a little stronger and more closely about your personal security. And so in our conference, we try to address that gap and talk about, look, this is a big topic here. Like there's more wealth as things become decentralized away from banks, which they are, security concerns get increased. And so we like to cover that. But there's a lot of, to answer your question, there's a lot of places where there's a lot of community around not only the industry in general, but also each one of these little crypto projects like TUSC or any of them, we also have our individual communities that support that specific project. And so we're, and that's big part of this, right? Is you got to grow your community out. And so, just go up and you can go hit our website. So if you go to TUSC.network, there, we actually have a community section that talks all about where you can find out about us. And it's really easy to find. We have all the links up there.
I like it. I like it a lot.
Well, I'm going to throw links up for the TUSC network, and I'll also throw in there the meetup and the off chain.
And I've done an off chain last year, and it was a fantastic event. I got to meet a lot of cool people, and I highly recommend it. It's a great way to get yourself involved with the community. and see what's new in Salt Lake City area, especially.
Well, sweet. I appreciate it, guys. I've had a good time today. And
Yeah,
if you
thanks.
guys ever, have something you want to talk about, I got a little show too. You guys come over to that. And
For sure.
like I said, well, I think there's going to be a lot of fun stuff coming.
Yeah, we need to do
we're
some,
working hard.
we need to do some cross podcasting. Our show, we try to center it on start out in Tooele County and then branch out, the main focus on Tooele County, like if there's a politics running or what have you, and then branch out from there. And Salt Lake's our next branch. That's the next branch over that we like to visit.
And it would be
Well, good.
fantastic if the gun community could actually rally around a business here in Utah. I mean, what a boon that would be to our economy, especially.
And we have a huge, and I didn't even realize this till we launched, how many gun-related manufacturers are actually based here. I mean, we have 3 suppressor manufacturers here in Salt Lake or in the area. I mean, I don't know if you know that, but 3 of the main suppressors or companies are here in Utah.
What about
you got
armored vehicles?
Barnes. What's
Armored vehicles. I know we have an armored vehicle company or two.
And we have Body Armor Company. We have Browning. You have Barnes Bullets. You got OSS suppressors. You
Now,
got
Browning-
Silencer Co.
Didn't Browning move to Tennessee?
They're still in Ogden.
Are they? I heard that their headquarters moved to Tennessee. That's why a Browning 1911 doesn't fall under the Utah Protection Act.
Maybe their headquarters. They still have a big presence in Ogden, though. I know that for a fact.
Tennessee or Kentucky or something. But yeah, they still have the place up there. The damn thing was invented here. It should be allowed all the time.
Well, wasn't Browning wasn't he a pioneer?
Yeah. Well, his father, his
father
his
was.
grandfather was, I believe. It was his father who started off inventing guns, and then he just polished off the knowledge.
But we do have a tremendous industry here in Utah. That's important. And I think we need to focus on, I think we need to create a big wall around Utah. But I think this is and the one thing that's interesting is that the industry isn't super unified, which was surprising too. It seems like there'd be more about it, but there's also a lot of boutique custom gun builders here as well, which is kind of fascinating, like Brethren Arms, and there's a few others that do some really cool stuff. So we're absolutely trying to focus on connecting with those guys. You got Blackwater Firearms has a huge presence here, and a bunch of others. I mean, it's amazing when you start digging into all these different folks that are here in this industry. And so I'm glad we're here in Utah, and I'm glad we're in this space. And I hope that we can support the industry anywhere we can. That's what I view it. I mean, we're trying to help that industry. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah. And what's your show you do? Let's plug that also.
Oh, sure. It's just a Rob McNealy program. It's just my name. It's just my website. It's just robmcnealy.com.
Okay. Well, we'll dig that up and put that in the show notes as well. And thanks for joining us. Started out as a very enlightening show and then just kept getting more enlighteninger. It was very good. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me, guys. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. And feel free, shoot us a message whenever you want to come on again. If there's an update or if there's anything we can do to support.
Will do. And there'll be a lot coming.
Good. All right. Thanks, man. You have a good one.
You too.
Bye.